The Great Divergence. Their opposing solutions. The fundamental split between Nietzsche and Buddha emerges in their responses to suffering. Both recognize the problem, but their prescriptions oppose each other at every level. The Buddha prescribed extinction of craving through the Eightfold Path. Nietzsche prescribed intensification of life through eternal affirmation. The Eightfold Path consists of right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. These 8 factors divide into 3 categories: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Right view means understanding the 4 noble truths and dependent origination. Right intention involves renouncing worldly attachments, cultivating goodwill, and avoiding harm. The ethical components regulate behavior to reduce harm and mental disturbance. The meditative components develop concentration and penetrating insight into reality. This path aims at nirvana, literally meaning extinction or blowing out. What is extinguished are the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. Nirvana is not a place or state of being, but the unconditioned beyond space and time. It cannot be adequately described in conceptual terms because it transcends ordinary categories. The Buddha used negative descriptions. It is not born, not made, not conditioned. Positively, it represents complete liberation from the cycle of suffering and rebirth. Scholars have long debated whether nirvana constitutes annihilation or transformation. Early Western interpreters often read it as simple extinction of consciousness. This interpretation influenced Schopenhauer and through him Nietzsche. Contemporary Buddhist studies emphasize that nirvana is neither existence nor non-existence, as ordinarily conceived. The Buddha refused to answer whether an enlightened being exists after death, calling such questions improper. They assume categories that do not apply to one who has transcended all categories. Nietzsche interpreted this transcendence as world denial and life negation. From his perspective, Buddhism represented an advanced case of decadence and exhaustion. It emerged from a tired, over-refined civilization that had lost its vital instincts. The Buddhist solution involved withdrawing from life rather than mastering it. His alternative centered on 3 interconnected concepts: will to power, eternal recurrence, and amor fati. These form what scholar Antoine Panayotti calls Nietzsche's positive philosophy of life affirmation. Amor fati means love of fate, the attitude of embracing everything that happens. Nietzsche wrote in Ecce Homo that his formula for human greatness is amor fati. One wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. This goes beyond stoic resignation or passive acceptance. It demands active love for necessity, including suffering, failure, and loss. One must not merely bear what is necessary, but actively love it. This attitude connects intimately with the doctrine of eternal recurrence. Eternal recurrence presents a thought experiment with profound psychological implications. Suppose a demon told you that your life will repeat infinitely exactly as it is. Every joy and pain, every triumph and humiliation would return in identical sequence forever. How would you respond to this prospect? Would you gnash your teeth in despair or proclaim the demon divine? Most scholars interpret eternal recurrence as an attitudinal test rather than a cosmological claim. Nietzsche did attempt to prove it physically in his unpublished notebooks. He argued that if time is infinite but matter finite, all configurations must eventually repeat. This reasoning fails because it ignores thermodynamics and assumes deterministic causation. The philosophical significance lies not in its physical truth, but its psychological impact. Someone who embraces eternal recurrence affirms their entire life without reservation. They would change nothing, even if given the opportunity. This represents the ultimate affirmation of existence against nihilism. Only those capable of this total affirmation have truly overcome the death of God. They no longer need transcendent meaning because they embrace immanent reality completely. Nietzsche argued that amor fati and eternal recurrence require tremendous strength. Most people flee from existence into comforting illusions like heaven or nirvana. They cannot bear the weight of existence without transcendent justification. They need to believe suffering serves some ultimate purpose or can be permanently escaped. The Buddha would have recognized this flight from reality, but diagnosed it differently. From a Buddhist perspective, clinging to existence represents the problem, not the solution. Nietzsche's eternal affirmation perpetuates the very craving that generates suffering. It embraces becoming rather than recognizing its ultimately unsatisfactory nature. Buddhist texts distinguish three types of craving: for sensual pleasure, for existence, and for non-existence. Nietzsche's philosophy represents refined craving for existence taken to its logical extreme. Instead of eliminating the thirst that creates suffering, it intensifies and glorifies it. This guarantees continued bondage to the cycle of dissatisfaction. Nietzsche countered that Buddhism's solution involves a subtle form of resentment. Resentment means reactive hostility born from powerlessness and perceived injury. Unable to affirm life, the weak declare life itself to be the problem. They transform their weakness into apparent strength through renunciation and asceticism. Buddhism thus represents slave morality dressed in philosophical sophistication. This critique reveals a fundamental axiological disagreement about what constitutes value. For Nietzsche, power, growth, and self-overcoming represent the highest values. Life should be judged by its intensity, creativity, and capacity for affirmation. Suffering is not inherently bad, but rather the precondition for greatness. Only through struggle and overcoming resistance do humans achieve excellence. For the Buddha, these values themselves arise from ignorance and craving. The pursuit of power and excellence rests on the false assumption of a substantial self. This self must be aggrandized, defended, and perpetually maintained through achievements. But since no such self exists, this entire project is fundamentally misguided. It resembles building an elaborate house on quicksand, doomed to collapse. The practical implications of these opposing solutions diverge dramatically. Buddhist practice involves gradual cultivation of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Meditators observe mental and physical phenomena arising and passing away. Through sustained observation, they directly experience impermanence, suffering, and no self. This experiential understanding, not mere intellectual knowledge, produces liberation. Thousands of hours of meditation practice typically precede significant attainments. The path requires renunciation of worldly pursuits to varying degrees. Monks and nuns adopt celibacy, poverty, and intensive practice schedules. Lay people maintain ethical precepts and develop concentration through regular meditation. The entire Buddhist tradition emphasizes gradual training and incremental progress. Nietzsche's path involves no systematic practice or institutional framework. He provides no meditation techniques, no ethical precepts, no community support. His philosophy demands individual self-creation through an act of radical freedom. One must become who one is by embracing one's fundamental nature and drives. This requires honest self-examination, courage to face harsh truths, and creative valor. The Nietzschean path emphasizes activity, struggle, and engagement with the world. Rather than withdrawing into meditation, one should immerse oneself in creative projects. Art, philosophy, politics, and cultural innovation provide arenas for self-overcoming. Suffering should not be eliminated, but transformed into fuel for achievement. These opposing approaches reflect different conceptions of human nature and possibility. Buddhism views craving as a removable defilement, obscuring our true nature. With sufficient practice, the mind can be purified and liberated. This optimism about human perfectibility underlies the entire soteriological project. Nietzsche views drives as constitutive of human nature, not removable imperfections. We are fundamentally beings of will to power, desiring and striving. Any attempt to eliminate these drives would destroy what makes us human. The question is not whether to have drives, but how to organize and direct them. Modern psychology offers evidence supporting aspects of both positions. Buddhist meditation demonstrably reduces suffering and increases well-being. Brain imaging studies show meditation alters neural activity in regions associated with emotion regulation. Long-term practitioners exhibit increased grey matter density in areas linked to attention and emotional control. These findings validate the Buddhist claim that mental training can fundamentally alter consciousness. Simultaneously, evolutionary psychology confirms that basic drives are deeply embedded in human nature. The desire for status, the pleasure in overcoming challenges, and aggressive impulses served adaptive functions. Complete elimination of such drives would require altering our biological architecture at fundamental levels. This suggests Nietzsche correctly identified drives as constitutive rather than removable. Perhaps the deepest disagreement concerns whether existence itself should be affirmed or transcended. Nietzsche demands we say yes to life in its totality, including its horrors. The Buddha teaches that all conditioned existence is ultimately unsatisfactory and should be transcended. These represent genuinely incompatible existential orientations. Nietzsche accused Buddhism of nihilism because it seeks to extinguish rather than transform suffering. Yet the Buddha explicitly rejected nihilism as a wrong view. Nirvana is not nothing but rather the unconditioned that stands beyond existence and non-existence. This distinction, however subtle, matters crucially for understanding Buddhist metaphysics. From the Buddhist perspective, Nietzsche's eternal affirmation represents a sophisticated form of ignorance. It clings to becoming and change as ultimate when they are merely conditioned phenomena. True wisdom recognizes the unconditioned that transcends the entire realm of flux. Nietzsche's philosophy mistakes the prison for freedom by learning to love the chains.